All right, we are live. Thank you so much for taking out some time. Let's start with the fastest land animal. They were forged during the pandemic shutdown. Give us a little background on yourself and how the band kind of got started, if you
So
can.
these are my me and the guys in the band. We were in another band called The Cringe, and we had been touring extensively, and we did like oh god, I don't know, 6, 7 albums, something like that. And we were working with our good friend Don Gilmore, who's a producer of Some Note. He did the first couple of Linkin Park records
Oh, cool.
and a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyway, so it was pandemic. It was 2020, the height of the lockdown. We were all stuck at home, and we couldn't tour. We couldn't play gigs. That just wasn't happening. But what we could do is record an album because we all had our like home studios
Oh,
wherever we were around the world, around the country, and we we decided let's do an album. This is our first album now, just called Fastest Land Animal. Let's all record our parts at home, and we'll glue it together at the end. And let we ideally we'd like to be in a studio together and rehearse together and record together, but you know, screw it. We don't have a choice. So we did that, and the process actually ended up being like pretty easy for us, and it worked out really well. We did the first album, um, and then we started recording the second album, and then the world opened up, and we were allowed to start touring again. So we went back out on the road, and then we decided let's just we finished our tour after the pandemic, and we had you know the next album to complete, and we decided let's just go home and do it the same way we did it last time because that
sure.
worked. And then we did it again, so it was all recorded from our home studios, mixed together after we recorded it, and I think it came out pretty good. And like normally we would go into a studio for 6, 8 weeks and live in the studio and record the whole album, and we would be done. But this way it gave us a little breathing room, and it took us maybe 2 months, 3 months instead of like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then we were able to like live at home and eat dinner with our families. And I didn't have to sit around and sleep on the dirty couch in the studio control room while the drummer's playing his parts for 8 hours a day. This way we would like discuss, this is what we want to do, let's make it sound like this. The drummer would come back with his part, we would listen to it and say that's good, maybe change this one little thing. The next day he'd come back, he had changed that one little thing, we'd be like good, done, on to the next thing. So it's really an efficient way for us to work. But that's not to say we don't love being in a studio and a band together.
Sure.
That's really ideal. But this is kind of killer for us.
That's sweet. I was going to ask a question about kind of doing it remotely. What would you say was your biggest challenge in doing that? Because it seemed like you guys kind of had it down pat. But was there any issues with being remote at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest issue would be you're waiting to hear what the other guy does, and if he does what you or the other guys want him to do, it's not like you're in the room with him and you can say, "Oh, that sounds cool, but try it this way." You have to like go to bed and wait till the next day and then hear whatever it was that happened, and then you discuss it. So that part was a little annoying. Like I'd rather be there and just say that's cool, but maybe hit this eighth note or hit that accent or play this bass note instead of that bass note, or let's try this guitar part, or let me try that guitar part.
Sure.
So it wasn't as fluid. Um, but for recording vocals, it was actually kind of great. So normally the way I would do vocals with Don Gilmore, our producer, is everything would be done pretty much. We'd have the basic, tracks, and that and I would sing over those, and we would go into a studio somewhere, whether it was my studio in upstate New York, or we actually most of the vocals we recorded before pandemic were in West Hollywood at Nightbird Studios, which is in the parking garage of the Sunset Marquis Hotel, which is famous, like where all the rock stars do debaucherous things in LA, in West Hollywood. But they have a really great vocal booth there. So it would be just Don and me, because singing vocals is a really personal thing. You really need to like not be self-conscious. And Don has this way, especially now that I know him really well, he has this way of making me feel not self-conscious about singing. And so we had this whole system down where it would just be Don and me alone in a studio. So what we did for these last two, for the Fastest Land Animal records remotely, was we figured out a way that Don could control my computer from, he was in California, I was in New York. And so from the other side of the country, he would be able to control my computer and record what I was singing in my studio, which he was like, this is crazy. I'm controlling your studio from, Palm Desert, and you're in upstate New York. So, but it still had that intimacy, and it was a really efficient way of working. We did all the vocals, lead vocals and backing vocals for the record in like less than a week. Wow. So we were doing like 3 songs a day, and Don's really good with me anyway, like not overdoing it. Like we do however many takes we need. Usually we would nail the vocal tracks in like 3 takes, and then we would do like maybe 3 or 4 more takes just to have them. And then he would know, okay, we're good. I know what I need, and I will glue or comp together a vocal track that's going to work for this record.
That's sick, man. I love it. So let's say from your debut self-titled album, which was in 2021, how do you feel that the band has kind of evolved with album 2 now, East Coast, West Coast, in between?
Well, I think that, we were very strict on the first album that it's called Fastest Land Animal. So every song has to be fast. So the rule was 150 beats per minute, which is a tempo, which is the rhythm of the song. We were not going to deviate below that threshold. There are 2 songs on the album that go down to maybe 130, which is still a pretty, quickly tempoed song, but it's not like fastest land animal. So maybe we're like fast land animal now with this record. And then there's a track on the album called Mercy Kiss, which is, it's still a pretty quick tempoed song, but it has like a ballad vibe to it. So we allowed ourselves to like do that and like go into like the, when you used to have lighters in the stadium, like in the arena, going back and forth, or I guess today it's like phones. You go back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we gave ourselves the room to do that.
That's cool, man. I love it. Well, and how did you guys come about covering the Police song Next to You and kind of adding a fresh spin on an already iconic track?
Well, we had never, we will occasionally play a cover song live because they're fun and the crowd loves it and all that, but we never actually recorded a cover song. But then when we were doing this album, we were pretty much done. But we needed one more track just to make it the right length, like we wanted at least 40-ish minutes of music, which fits very nicely on the vinyl configuration, which is really important to me and apparently a lot of other people. I love that particular presentation of music on a vinyl format is, really, it's just a really nice way to present rock and pop music. So we needed like one more track, and I thought, maybe let's do a cover. We'd never done a cover, recorded a cover before. And I thought, the Beatles' first two albums were half covers. And if the Beatles can do it, certainly, mere mortals like us can do that, because, whatever the Beatles do is the best. And David Bowie's another one of my favorite artists of all time. He would typically do at least one cover an album for a big part of his career. So I said, let's try it. Then the question was, what are we going to do? And I didn't want to do something that was so on the nose that it was like obviously a cover. I knew we wanted to do something that was in the punk, new wave-ish genre, but I didn't want to do something like I Want to Be Sedated, which is I love that song, but that's obviously the Ramones. Or London Calling, it's obviously the Clash. Or even like a Police song, like Every Breath You Take or Roxanne is obviously a Police song. I want to do something that maybe is an album track that people kind of knew, but we could, not that we're fooling people into thinking we wrote it, but we're kind of fooling people into thinking we wrote it, because they're
Makes
like,
sense.
I know that song. That's a good song. You guys killed that song. And it's your song, right? And we're like, well, not really. It's actually Sting's song, but he wrote it. So I was going through we were doing iterations of maybe a Husker Du song, maybe a Stooges song. We didn't know. And then our bass player, Alphonse Castillo, came up with the idea. We all love the Police. Let's do Next to You. And we all took a pause and said, oh my God, yeah, wow, what a great choice. It's fast, so that checks that box, Fastest Land Animal. It's catchy, it's got a great hook, and it's not such an obvious song. So that's what we did. And then we put our own spin on it, in that we added a lot of synths. Like I play keyboards, and I have some really cool analog synths. So, I mean, I don't know how technical we want to get with your particular audience, but an analog synth is different than a digital synth. Digital music it's really cool. It lives in your computer, and
Right.
your computer creates whatever note you play on the keyboard that you're pressing the notes on. An analog synth is totally different, in that your computer is not creating those sounds. Those sounds are being created by things called oscillators, which
Right.
are, basically an electric wave is moving through a transistor and creating a wave sound that sort of sounds like, and then you can manipulate that sound with all these knobs and levers and all these buttons, and you can create a sound that's unique, and you've never heard it before, and you may not ever hear it again. And it sounds really thick and chewy and awesome. So we used a lot of those synths on that song, and that kind of pulled it a little bit more from the punk to the new wave thing, which was cool for us. And then we did some other things, like we went into halftime instead of full time. So like full time is like, here's Next to You is like this, and then all of a sudden you go like,
Sure.
yeah, just to give it some oomph.
Sure. Yeah, man.
So I don't know. I think we kind of put a cool spin on it. I mean, the Police version is the best. I love it, but I think we kind of did a cool thing with it.
Close second, man. I'll tell you that. It's a great track. I think you guys nailed it. So, and a couple of your other songs, like Out of Range and Cowboys in Nashville, both of those have already, gotten great success on YouTube, with like nearly over 1 million views already.
Wow.
In a short period of time. Can you kind of reflect on the success of that? Pretty impressive.
Well, I mean, I don't know how this all works, but I'm happy that we have that many views. I could tell you about the songwriting process. So, like, Cowboys in Nashville was a song I had written maybe 15 years ago, and I kind of it was somewhere on a computer somewhere. I had the song, and we were almost done with the record. we needed another couple of songs, and I remembered I'd written this. It wasn't even a full song. It was like half a song. It was like Cowboys in Nashville. It was a verse, a chorus, and then it ended. And but it had this really kind of aggressive thing. It had this really cool vocal treatment, even on the demo, where I'm like, it sounds like I'm screaming through a megaphone, and you
That's
can
cool.
barely hear what the heck I'm singing about. Um, but I brought it to the band and to Don, and I said, I have this thing maybe could work on the record, and I played it for them. They were like, yeah, that's a totally a Fastest Land Animal song. So we workshopped it and like expanded it, made it longer, and put a little bridge part in it, and yeah, that became. So I guess that Cowboys in Nashville is the song that took me the longest to write. If you technically stretch it out, it took me 15 years to write that song.
It's epic. I love it.
And then Out of Range, typically when I write music, I do a lot of demos at home, and then I bring them to the band. The music comes to me first, and then the lyrics come second. But
Okay.
Out of Range was one of those rare instances where the music and the lyrics kind of came simultaneously. And it's just, when I write lyrics, which, I love writing music. Writing lyrics to me is challenging, and I really have to work at it, and I rewrite and I rewrite and I rewrite, and I labor over like everything, every word in the song. But Out of Range just kind of happened, and it was really visual. I think it's really important when you write lyrics to make the lyrics visual so you can see things. And this song, which kind of set the table for the whole album, was about this guy who was stranded in this border town in dusty West Texas somewhere, and he just can't get home. And that was the whole point of that song. And then it became sort of a thematic thing throughout the album, is whether you're in Texas or you're a James Bond character in Europe, you can't get home, and you're just on the lam. So that was sort of like I said, set up the motif for the rest of the record.
That's sick, man. I love it. The one fun question I like to ask is that if I took your phone right now, give me a few of the bands that I would hear on your playlists right now.
You would hear, well, I've been listening to there's this Tony Williams show from 1989 in New York. I think it's at the Blue Note. I've been listening to that a lot. I've been listening to Snail Mail,
Ooh.
who she's a really talented young woman. Out of curiosity, I was listening to A Giant Dog, and I think they're called 100 Gex. And then I always have the Beatles and Husker Du, and who else is on my phone that I'm listening to? And AC/DC.
Oh,
I mean,
right on.
you always got to listen to AC/DC.
Always. That's a must. Those are some good ones, man. I love it.
Thank you.
So, I got one more question here. Let's see. Tell us about, taking your show on the road with joining the legendary Tesla on their Time to Rock tour, and what can fans expect? That's really exciting, dude.
We love those guys. So right now you're speaking to me from Tuscany, Italy. I'm in my studio here, and I'm going to be here until April 18th, wherein we hit the road with Tesla in Detroit. I think it's Motor City Casino. So we've toured with Tesla for years now as both my prior band, The Cringe, and Fastest Land Animal. First of all, we've become very good friends with them. Brian Wheat, one of their founders and their bass player, he lives about 20 minutes from my house here in Italy.
Wow.
And I think he may be in upstate New York right now, but I'm texting him as we speak because my wife wants to have him over for pasta.
I love it.
Yeah, but he's just a mensch, as it's an Italian word, mensch.
You
It
know it.
means good guy. Anyway, so him and the rest of the band, we've become really close with them, and we were out in the road with them as the Cringe, and then pandemic happened, and then almost 2 years later, we went back out in the road. Slightly different band configuration, but still us. Totally different set list, totally different music, as Fast as Land Animal. And it was like a homecoming. Like everyone, all the crew members, everyone in the band, they were like, "Hey, welcome back. We're back out again. We're doing it again." And even the crowds, it was funny because we would play a lot of the same venues, and the places were packed because Tesla draws a great crowd.
Yeah.
And we typically would play the direct support to them, so all the butts would be in seats by the time we would hit stage, and the crowd was like, "Hey, I think I know those guys. This is I don't know who Fastest Land Animals, but I know them. We saw them like 2 years ago." Yeah, so they're really welcoming, and yeah, we can't wait. Like that's my favorite thing, man, is play live gigs and get the immediate feedback from the crowd, and that's just the best. Nothing beats that. That's the best high you could ever get on planet Earth.
I love it, man. That's
Well,
so
I mean,
cool.
really good food and sex is really, you get a good high from those two things. And hitting a really good golf shot also send like vibrations through your loins. But yeah, I love playing live. That's where we love. That's where we excel, I think, and that's our happy place, as it were.
I love it, man. Well, I'm looking to come to that Tesla show on the 5th of May, so I will definitely be
We're
seeing
gonna
you
see
guys
down in
there.
Disney.
That's right, sir. Down in Disney. That's where I live.
Awesome.
So I will be there.
We
Well,
will look
listen.
forward to seeing you, man.
Yeah, man, listen, I appreciate you taking out some time. This has been a blast. And
My
I wish you the
pleasure.
best of luck, man.
Thank you, Mike.